Good evening all, and welcome. Tonight's video has been graciously sponsored by Creepy Crate. Creepy Crate is a bi-monthly subscription filled with horror, paranormal, and true crime goodies, and at least a book or two along the way. The box you see on screen is the box for April, and it has been one of my favourite to date. For all of you who know, I am a huge Harry Potter geek, and the stuff to do with witches and magic really won me over. I'd really recommend it. So if you want to get your very own, click the link in the description and check it out. And to make it even sweeter, you can use the discount code MORTIS to get $5 off your first purchase. I'd really recommend it. I really like it, and I hope that you guys do too. But anyway, for now it's time for you all to get comfortable and let the darkness take control. I'm a female, and this happened when I was 14. I live in a town in the UK, and in the centre of the town there are a group of about 4 benches around each other. Me and my small group of friends, 6 of us in total, and all female, were walking up to the bench area when we saw something strange. Sat on the benches were a group of all-male guys. I'd guess they were all aged between 13 and 20, all wearing the same matching cowboy hats, red and white checkered shirts, jeans and cowboy boots. I remember one of my friends commenting how weird it was to see people wearing such strange outfits. I guess they could have been in fancy dress, but I didn't get that vibe from them. Their outfits looked too smart, but it could have been a possibility, I suppose. Anyway, as we get closer, we see that there were 5 of them all together, and as we walked by, one of the older boys shouted to my friend about how sexy that big round ass of hers was, or something along those lines. We were all pretty pissed off about this, as he was much older than us, and it was rude. So me and my friend Laura started yelling at them. I normally wouldn't have started yelling, but I suppose I felt safe in my group of friends, and it was daytime with people about. They didn't seem to care and laughed at us. This is when things started to get weird. The same guy who called out to my friend said, "You're all quite good looking actually. How do you fancy to give us a ride?" Me and Laura, the more confident ones of the group, started saying how disgusting they were. After that was said, things became a lot more sinister very quickly. The 5 guys muttered something to each other, and then all of a sudden they had split themselves from the youngest to the oldest, and then the other 3. The youngest and the oldest guy started chasing at me and my friend Laura. We were slightly off to the side as we had gotten closer to them. All 6 of us screamed and automatically took off running in different directions. Me and Laura ran towards the lower end of the street, and my other friends took off running the other way. I only ran a few seconds before stopping to look behind me. I thought maybe they did a sprint at us just to scare us off and make us leave, but no, they were still following us. They were calling out, "Hey, wait up, come on, don't be like that." And after a minute of running, Laura pulled me into a big electrical shop. We headed straight to the back, trying to hide behind stands of phones and cardboard cutouts of people on phones, the ones they used to advertise. The shop itself was pretty big and busy, and we thought that we would lose them. But we were wrong. Just as Laura whispered to me that it was probably just a joke and that they were messing around, the 2 guys walked into the shop. They looked around a bit, but the youngest saw Laura peeking around the side and came straight at us, saying, "There they are," as he ran forwards. Laura and I ran for the door, and only just managed to escape without being cornered. We ran into a nearby clothing shop, and actually got stopped by a female worker there for running. We explained the situation, and the 2 guys were following us, and she was pretty understanding and said that she'd look out for them, as they weren't going to be hard to spot. Unfortunately, luck wasn't on our side, and she was called away a minute later, and the boys entered the shop. They didn't spot us for a good few minutes, and so we sneaked back up to the front doors. Just as we were leaving, the taller, older boy noticed me, probably because I was tall and also wearing a bright red jumper, so I wasn't hard to miss. Once we got outside, we ran for a small alley that led to the back of the shops. Looking back, that was dumb, but we were scared and the alley was directly opposite, so we automatically ran towards it. They followed us, managing to still see us between the crowds. I cursed the red jumper I wore. However, we did temporarily lose them. We hid behind one of a few dumpsters and could hear them calling out, louder now, as the alley was empty besides us. Just then, an older man around in his 40s appeared from what felt like nowhere. He was also wearing a cowboy hat. He was smoking and looked angry. Me and Laura managed to get around another corner before he saw us. Then we heard him speak. "Did you catch them?" One of the boys that had chased us replied with, "No." "How did you know we were chasing girls?" The older man said, "The other guys called me, said they'd lost their girls that they were chasing, and wanted to know if you had caught the two you were following." The conversation got weird and confusing after that, and I honestly barely remember what they said, but it sounded like chasing girls was a code for something else, and it happened regularly in between them selling drugs. Laura and I decided we had heard enough and followed the back alley back to the main town centre. I grabbed my phone and rang one of our other friends who we had split up from earlier. She answered straight away and sounded upset. She went on to explain how the four of them had been chased by the three remaining guys, but had lost them pretty quickly by going in and out of crowded shops and back doors, going on to say that they had tried to call me and Laura, and we hadn't answered and they were getting concerned. Laura and I explained what happened, and the six of us began walking to the bus stop, all agreeing we just wanted to get out of there. On the 30-minute route to the bus stop, we saw a man in his 40s, and the oldest guy who had chased me and Laura again, but they didn't see us. It wasn't hard to see that they were arguing though. The older man was red-faced and pointing his finger and jabbing at the guy. We all got the bus, and were relieved that we had gotten away. I'm not sure why they were dressed as cowboys, and I definitely don't know why they started chasing us like that, and were so determined to catch us. Laura is almost certain they were going to take us somewhere, to do some dodgy stuff with us. That's what they were shouting about after all. I think the weirdest thing to me is who the older man was, and why did he call the guys and make it like this was a regular thing. Either way, it's freaked me out, years later. My friend and I used to hang out when I was in junior high school. We would go around causing trouble without getting into severe trouble. Teachers spoke to us about being smartasses and that kind of stuff. We were called the dark and twisty siblings, like Meredith Grey and Christina Yang. He was my first love, and his sister was overprotective of him. One night I go over to his house because his sister wanted to hang out with me. They lived a few minutes away from the police station, and 5 minutes away from my school, and 5 minutes from Cumberland. His dad was working late, and his mum worked overnight at the hospital. We go to Cumberland's, and this old man starts following us, and starts harassing us. Mind you, it's about 6:37 at night on a Friday night, and Cumberland's is a 24-hour gas station. My friend called her brother, and he comes and follows us. We go in and get what we want, and the old man is still harassing us. The lady at the register starts threatening him that she will get the cops involved. He wouldn't quit, so she got the cops involved. They came in and immediately get backup. They get him into the back of a cop car, and I questioned the cops about it. He's a wanted man back in Massachusetts. Are you okay? We both nodded. I wanted to piss my pants there and then. My friend and his sister were hugging each other, and I was scared shitless. He said that the man they had just arrested, they had been looking for. He was a sex offender, and a whole lot of other stuff. Thankfully, the cashier helped us. I didn't sleep that night though, neither did my friends. It was scary as hell. This story happened when I was 16. I'm 32 now, and this story has stayed with me. And I didn't live in the best area at all. I'm well known in my city for being full of drug users, sellers, and ex-convicts. So anyway, I lived with my mum, stepdad, 2 brothers, and our dog, Cass. One night at around 9 p.m, my mum asked me to take the dog out for a walk. It was pretty dark, so yes, mother, send your 16-year-old daughter out to walk a dog in a bad area in the dark. Smart move. For some reason, I didn't like the idea and fought with my mother about it, but she was demanding, and I was forced to do it. I went upstairs to grab my coat. As I was about to walk back downstairs, I decided I should take a little flick knife with me and popped it in my pocket just in case. I went back downstairs, clipped the lead on the dog, a medium-sized Heinz 57 dog, and set out with him. Now note that my area is like a rabbit warren. Lots of twists and turns, small passageways and dark alleys. So on my walk I tried to avoid these, but it wasn't always easy to avoid them. Cass was quite happy to sniff everything as he walked, so it was not a quick walk at all. We walked past one of the dark alleyways that led to the nearby park, and everything seemed normal, until I felt an arm wrapped around my neck and felt like I was being dragged towards the alleyway entrance. I started to scream in panic, and I heard a gruff man's voice telling me to shut up. I started to panic and dropped the lead, and in full stupid dog mode, Cass ran off in the direction of our house. Thanks, Cass. For a moment, my vision blurred, as tears filled my eyes, thinking this was it. But I remembered I had my pocket knife. I reached into my pocket with one hand, while the other was trying to pry this man's arm off me. His other hand had wrapped around my stomach to drag me quicker, and I was yelling as loudly as I could. I found my knife buried under my house keys and dragged it out my pocket, pressed the little button that opened the blade out, and slammed the blade into the guy's thigh. He yelled into my ear in pain and let go of me. I booked it out of there without looking back or grabbing my knife, tears now flowing out my eyes, and I headed home in full sprint mode. I got home and burst through the door. The dog was in the house, with my mother taking his lead off. She looked at me and started to yell about almost losing the dog. Crying, I tried to explain what happened, but she just kept interrupting me, telling me how irresponsible I was, so I gave up and went to bed instead. She wasn't and still isn't the best parent in the world. This isn't the only time something scary has happened to me, but it sticks in my mind as the only time I ever used a knife, and lost it in the process. I miss that knife. Saturday night rolls around, and me and my girlfriend decide to go out to a bar and drink, since we haven't seen each other that much this week, and we haven't been to our favourite bar in a while. We get there around 10, and the place is decently busy, so we get a table and I go and get some drinks. We sit and talk for a while, and I get up to get some more, but on my way back, I see this guy sitting in my seat talking to my girlfriend. I set the drinks down and ask what's going on. Before she could answer, the guy tells me he's seeing if she wants to get a drink with him. I didn't say anything for a second, but she quickly says she's there with me, and no thanks. He looks around at me and gets up and says he'll see us later. But I brushed it off, and we go back to talking. This guy being the new topic of conversation. We sit and talk until she needs to go to the restroom, and I sit and watch our drinks and stuff for a few minutes. About 10 minutes later, she comes back to the table with the same guy walking beside her, trying to talk to her. I stand up and ask him what he's doing, to which he replies with he's trying to buy her a drink. I tell him that he needs to leave us alone, or I tell the bar that he's creeping out customers. He tells me to piss off and stalks back to the bar, and we sit back down and decide to finish our drinks and then go home. We pay our tab and start waiting for our Uber to pick us up, when out of nowhere she spins around. It's the same guy from the bar saying she shouldn't go home with strange men when she's obviously drunk, and he should call a cab for her to get home safely. I was having none of it, so I stepped between them and told him to stop bothering us and to walk away. He calls me an asshole again before telling my date goodnight and walks off into the night. We get home safe and sound and decide to call it a night. Everything was cool until Sunday night happens. I get a message from her saying the creepy guy from last night found her on Facebook and started messaging her. He was asking if she got home okay and asked how serious she was about us. She was furious, so she told him to piss off and leave her alone, or that she would call the cops. Yet at this point he sends one of the creepiest things ever, saying she fits all his preferences and he's never seen a more beautiful woman ever. I tell her to block him and ask him to send me his name so that I could see what he's up to. I get the name and check out his page, and he's in the same school as us and in similar majors to mine and has made friends with someone I know. I wonder how he found out who she was, and I think he may have gotten my name from the bar, and since we went to a bar known for students of our school going there, I think he put it together. I was having none of it, and asked for screenshots of what he said, and sent it to all the campus security officers and told them the story. We both blocked and reported him, and hopefully he won't show his face again anytime soon. I was about 15 or 16 at the time, when I went into town to get some drinks with a bunch of friends. We were in a club at around 3 p.m. and decided to get some food. We got the food at a takeaway and walked down to the town square to go and eat it. This is where we stumbled upon a man, Roger, who was assaulting another older man. He kept giving the older man headbutts, and the older man started bleeding, and you could see that he was starting to lose consciousness. Every time he dropped to his knees, Roger picked him up and gave him headbutts again. Seemingly a friend of Roger stood next to him and just watched them. Me and my friends went to take a seat on the other side of the square, acting like we were minding our own business, but we were actually calling the police. All of a sudden, Roger's friend decides the older man has had enough. He grabbed Roger and started screaming at the older man to run. He ran away. After that, the attention was directed at us. There was no one left in the square but me and my friends, and they were still calling the police. Roger started threatening him. I told my best friend to just look at the ground and do nothing. Then Roger walked towards us and says something like, "Look at me," and began to scream it. I was so scared that I turned my head towards him, and he said, "I know your face now. If your friend called the police, you're all dead." I was so scared he would find me. I changed my appearance after this, and stayed out of that part of town. Then, as if in a movie, a Porsche drove around the corner speeding towards us. Roger stepped inside, and when they were about to drive off, the police drove around the corner. The Porsche drove off, and the police stopped and we yelled, "It's him in the Porsche!" And then we heard through the police radio, "We got him," and the name of a store. I have no idea what happened. I still don't know why there was another police car there that stopped the Porsche. It doesn't seem normal. Maybe this guy was just in the right place at the right time, but what do I know? All I know is that I never want to see this guy again. I'm a 22-year-old male who's studying at a university in the Midlands in England. I'm currently living in the halls of residence and recently there have been reports of people being assaulted, mainly females, when they have been walking alone or in small groups at night, when they are on their way back from the nightclubs or pubs. Tonight is a Saturday, and due to being out last night, I was feeling pretty hungover still, so I made my way down to the supermarket to get myself some painkillers, and a few other things I needed from there. So as I'm coming out of the supermarket, which is approximately an 8-minute walk from my campus, I'm putting my headphones in when I pass two girls who are crying, and I'm pretty certain one of them was looking my way when she said the words, "Be careful up there." Now, at the time I didn't think anything of it, and just thought she may have been drunk, and hey, they might not have been talking to me. So I'm walking up the long road which my campus is on, and it's surprisingly quiet, and the road is literally dead apart from 3 average-sized males walking my way from the distance on the same side of the road. I cross the road, and am scrolling on my phone as I normally do as I walk. I look up, and briefly see that these men have crossed the road and are now looking at me. I'm around 15 feet away from them, and this is kind of making me a little anxious, as there's literally nobody else around. As they reach me, one of these men says, "Good evening." They look Eastern European, and are in their mid to late 30s, wearing casual attire of jeans, bomber jacket and trainers. As I proceed to say, "I'm in a rush, sorry," another one of the group steps across my path. I don't know if this was meant in an intimidating manner, but red flags are going off in my head right now. The man who spoke to me is holding what appears to be flyers, so I think they're promoting something. I lower my headphones and can hear what they're saying. The man asks me how old I am and what I'm studying for. I tell him I'm 22, studying forensic science. The man then proceeds to ask me if I have a girlfriend. I tell him that I do not, and at this point I break eye contact with the male that is talking to me, and glance at the third man's hand, as he appears to be fidgeting, and in his left hand, he is holding a relatively large Swiss Army knife. At this point I'm quite panicked. The main male then asks me in this thick Eastern European accent where they can find girls. I tell him I don't really know, and proceed away from these men. This is when the guy standing in my way doesn't move, and I physically walk into him. I'm not the biggest of guys, but I wouldn't say small. I'm 5'11" and roughly 190 pounds, but I'm not in any way a fighter or a confrontational person, so I'm getting a little afraid at this point, as these men are obviously looking for trouble. The main male then asks me a question that frankly scares me. He asks me if I know any females under 18 in this area. I then tell him that I don't, and he nods. And he now appears to be getting agitated for some reason, and I'm now probably visibly shaking. The man asks me what's in my shopping bag, and he ushers me to show him what's in it. I tell him it's just general groceries. The man slightly pushes my shoulder and asks if I have a younger sister, and I tell him I don't have any siblings at all. The main male then frowns at me in quite a sinister manner. Now I don't know what's going to happen after this point, but from behind me I hear chattering and laughter, and the men look, as I do, in the direction as well, and to my relief it's a group of 7 people, both male and female. A wave of relief passes over me, as this dead street now has people on it. The main guy then proceeds to ask me another question, but the man standing in my way says something along the lines of "idemo," which I googled, and is the word in Bosnian for go. When he was saying this, he was pushing the arm of the man with the Swiss Army knife. The group of the people are now about 20 feet away from us, and I gained the courage to tell these 3 men that I'm in a rush, and forcefully shove past the man on my way out, and speed walk back to campus, which is about 100 meters away from me, straight to my building and into my room. Thinking back, the reports of female assaults and the things the girls were saying to be careful as I came out of the supermarket now appear significant. I'm not saying these guys are culpable for the assaults around the university campus, but it just made me think about those events. I'm so relieved and lucky that the group of people were coming up the road, as I don't know what would have happened to me if they hadn't have come up when they did. I still fear why one of them said the word go. Was he urging the other man to stab me? Or was he urging his group to move on to abort their mission, so to speak? It was just the general way in which these men spoke to me, and the manner in which one of them blocked my path, and they kind of surrounded me. I don't think these guys had good intentions, and I don't know if I'm being paranoid or overreacting, but the questions these men asked aren't normal. So 3 Eastern European men that surrounded me in the street? Let's never meet again. To start this story off, I was around 13 years old when this happened. I wouldn't have had such an okay reaction with this now, but it seemed harmless at the time. One winter, I had a friend visiting from another state. She rarely got to visit, and I was super excited to see her again. We both did cheerleading, so we were both really into doing backflips and stuff. So naturally, we went to a new trampoline park in town. So to give you an idea of the trampoline park, the main trampolines had 2 sets of stairs to walk up, all of the trampolines going vertically across the whole upstairs. Also, there was horizontal walkways where usually the kids who worked there would stand. All they ever did was yell at you for sitting down so you wouldn't get trampled by others. My friend and I were each on our own stretch of the trampoline. It was pretty empty in there that day, so we got lucky. Suddenly I looked up and saw a woman with a fancy camera on the walkway taking pictures. I thought that it was odd for a parent to be on the walkway, but just figured she was taking pictures of her kids having fun. I brushed it off, I did some flips, messed around and talked to my friend. Then I realized the woman was taking pictures of us. I pointed it out to my friend, and this is where things started to get kind of blurry. I don't know if the woman waved us over or walked up to us, but the next thing I remember was her showing us the pictures of us. Most of them were of my friend, and to give this woman the benefit of the doubt, my friend was pretty skilled when it came to doing different types of flips. I don't remember what she said to us exactly. I just remember thinking it was so weird that she was taking pictures of other people's kids. It wasn't even like the picture was originally of her kids and we were in the background. It was literally just pictures of me and my friends, and multiple. We stood there and watched her click through many pictures of just us. The last few things I recall were her being really weird and just seeming off trying to talk to us about the pictures. We somehow got out of the conversation and the woman left. And now that I look back on it, I don't think she even had any kids with her. When my oldest daughter was a freshman in college, she and her friends decided to get into bones. Specifically, they would pick up decaying roadkill, clean the skulls, and make art from them, or sell them. Eventually, they decided to get some fresh cow skulls to clean. They went to a local slaughterhouse and brought 3 cow heads, wrapping them in plastic garbage bags and putting them in the back of their car. On the way back to the cleaning site, they stopped at a home improvement store in the middle of nowhere to pick up some supplies. 2 people went inside, 2 people stayed with the car. After a few minutes, my daughter said, "I think the heads shifted. I'm gonna check up on them and make sure the bags didn't come open." She got out, opened the hatchbacks, and the bags toppled out, spilling blood and decapitated cow heads onto the pavement. As she jumped back, she happened to see a lone store employee pushing carts back to the store, and he saw the heads and the blood. He dropped the carts and power walked as fast as possible to the storefront, just as my daughter's friends came out. "We need to go," she said, and they all went with haste. This was about 5 years ago now. I'm sure that poor traumatized employee is hoping he never meets them again. In 2010, I was living in an apartment in Central Florida with a guy who hated smoking, so I would typically go on walks whenever I had to smoke. I'm also a night person and sometimes take long walks while having a joint and listening to a podcast or audiobook for an hour or two in the middle of the night. So I went out for my usual 1 a.m. smoke walk. As I was walking for only a few minutes, when a guy in a white pickup truck slows down as he passes. He's trying to get my attention, but I pretend I didn't hear him because of my headphones. He slows down and stops right next to me, so I can't ignore him. I took my headphones off, and he immediately starts asking, "Have you seen my daughter around here? I know you have." I told him I had no idea what he was talking about, and started to walk away. Then he started screaming, "I know you've got her, you asshole. Give her back now." And he starts to get out of his truck. I immediately run away, and he gets back in, and I run around some buildings that were next to us a few times while he chased me around the building from his truck, coming nearly all the way up to the building. After about 3 times around the building back and forth, I hid in a bush where I relit my joint. He kept peeling around the block that surrounded the buildings in his truck, with a flashlight scanning for me, beeping his horn and screaming some incoherent nonsense about his daughter for a few more minutes, until he was convinced he lost me and then left. I've never had such an experience before or since, and to this day, I'm still confused about what actually happened there. Have you ever worked in a building with lots of other people? Probably. I used to work for this small company. We were based on the 3rd floor. I used to have a nice little desk by the window, and I'd sometimes look out and just daydream when I was bored. Thing is, I didn't have a beautiful view. I had another office, very close to mine, in a different building. There was a nice girl who'd sit there, and sometimes if she'd catch me gazing, she'd give me a little wave and a smile, and I'd smile back. However, due to some funky ideas from senior management, we established a new desk system, and my cozy office got moved to the other side of the building. The daydreaming was equally as boring there too, because I was staring at the same building but from a different side. When I looked, I see rows of desks, and there was a guy in the corner. He looked a bit creepy, to be honest, and had one of those ugly neck beards. He was just hammering away at his keyboard. I didn't know who he was, and quite frankly, I didn't care. I just set up my little workspace and got to work. Things then started happening. I'd go down with the girls for lunch break, and maybe would have a smoke, and I'd see the guy. He'd be walking and staring at me, quite dull-eyed, stalking me, almost like an animal would stalk its prey. I'd be standing by Pret-a-Manger having my smoke, and across the road he'd just be looking at me, unwavering, unmoving, just still. I waved my hand up and down. That way I'd let him know that I was onto him, and also to kind of ask him what the hell he was doing. He just turned around and walked back into his building. I didn't see him for a while. Not outside anyway. But sometimes when I'd stare out the window thinking, I'd catch him looking at me. This started to freak me out. So I began pulling down the blind, which I didn't like, and didn't look outside anymore. That guy was really getting on my nerves. About a month goes by, and creepy guy has slipped into the back of my mind. I don't need to think about him anymore. I've got no reason to. I haven't seen him, and as winter was coming on, there wasn't much reason to open the blinds anyway. Then one day, I decide I'm gonna. I pull the blinds open, and thank goodness he's not sitting there. No one is. And I feel that this is a small personal victory. The day goes on, and nothing happens. That evening, though, as I'm finishing work late, I go down to my car, and what I saw horrified me. It was a grainy picture, so obviously whoever had taken it had used zoom and then zoomed in even more from the other building. It didn't take a genius to realize it was taken from the window of where the creeper sat. It was on the windshield of my car, and I felt absolute terror strike me. I didn't even go into my car for fear he was hiding nearby. I went back and took the train home instead, which took 2 hours, but my gosh was it worth it. I wasn't really sure what to do next, and next morning I contacted the HR department of my office and let them know of the situation and showed them the creepy pictures. They contacted the police, and it was definitely stalking from this creepy guy. It took a while, but I found out who he was and what his deal was. He actually ended up getting fired because he wasn't just stalking and harassing me, but it turns out that he was on his last chance, as within his 1 year in the company, he had already caused serious harassment issues and caused a female member of the team to leave not weeks before this started up. I was horrified. Creeps like that should be fired straight away. I never really got to know much more about him, but I hope that he learnt the error of his ways and hopefully is not creepy like that anymore. So creepy guy, let's never meet again. Hey guys, it's Mort here, and thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's video. I do enjoy me some Let's Not Meet stories from time to time. If you liked the video too, don't forget to drop a like and leave a comment to be part of the 1000 comment crew. And to let me know what you thought of it as well. That's pretty nice. I do post new content every single night, so be sure to subscribe and press the little bell icon for good measure to be notified every single time I post. Because I post a lot. If you want to share your story, like so many people did today, feel free to send it to my email or post it on Reddit. My Reddit specifically. All information can be found in the description. Just be generous with your punctuation and paragraphing. That really helps me out. But anyway, for now guys, I'm going to sign off. Stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.